So this video will be about the other Ivy seniors and their interviews and their advice for the college application process. I already gave some of my advice in the very first video, in the second video I made, and throughout these videos, but now I'm going to feature the interviews of the other seniors so you can see some other perspectives on the college application process because everyone is different. Everyone is going to do different things and it's all going to work out differently. So it's really whatever you feel best with. So now we're going to watch some of those to see some of what they have to say about
What
it.
was the hardest part of the college application process for you, and how did you get through it?
Figuring out like what schools I wanted to apply to, probably because there are just so many and it's kind of overwhelming to like kind of narrow down your choices. I mean, I applied to like 15 and like that's a lot. Like most people like apply to like 5 or 7, so I would say that was kind of tricky.
Okay. Do you have any tips for choosing colleges?
Trust your gut. No, I don't really know what to say. You just gotta do your research and kind of learn what you like and what you don't like and what you want in a school.
Okay. And is there anything that you would do differently now looking back at your college process?
I would procrastinate less because I turned in everything the day before and that was probably not the best decision.
What was the hardest part of the college application process for you?
I applied to 15 colleges. I'd say just organizing all of the essays and making sure the transcripts were sent and everything was turned in that I had to turn in was probably the hardest part for me.
Is there anything you would do differently now looking back on like college application season?
I would spend more time preparing for the SAT. I'm not sure how standardized testing is going to be for future students, but I would definitely take a class or have more frequent tutoring sessions than what I did.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any like broad advice just for rising seniors as they start to begin the process?
Don't wait. Start as soon as possible. Do research on which schools you want to apply to, which programs you think you want to go into, and just get on top of it.
College application process for you?
Probably it's hard to stay organized, and the supplementals, they're not hard, but there's just like, it makes you not really want to apply to a certain college because there's just so many, but I think you should just do it anyway and push through because they're not that bad once you get started.
Mm-hmm. And looking back on the fall of senior year and your college applications, is there anything you would do differently?
No, maybe I might have applied to some more challenging schools. I mean, my school was challenging, but I was very like unsure of myself and not very confident. So I wanted to apply to schools that I knew I could get into, and I think it's better to take risks. I mean, always have your safety, but like don't sell yourself short.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any just overall advice for rising seniors as they begin the college application process?
I talked to a college counselor, and I also had a binder that had all of my college information, every school I wanted to apply to, all of my essays in there. I think it's very easy to get like confused or disorganized. So as long as you're organized and stay ahead of everything, and I think it should be pretty good, and don't wait till the last minute to do them.
So what do you think was the hardest part of the college application process for you, and how did you get through it?
The hardest part of the college application process, honestly, I didn't find the college application process that difficult. It was just really hard to manage with school because there were a lot of things happening during that time. I really wish I would have applied early action to a lot more schools, but I simply could not get it together. If you can apply early action, do it because you're not going to want to apply in January. I promise you that. But I found having to get my schoolwork done at the same time just made my life so much harder. So try your best to manage.
So if you were looking back on the process, the number one thing you would do was apply early action to schools?
I would apply early action, and I would start early. Start early and give yourself plenty of time so that you don't get too stressed out, so that you can go back. Like, start early, please.
Okay. And just, do you have any other just general advice for rising seniors as they start to begin the process?
So, for rising seniors, my advice would be to Really do some research into your schools, especially the school that you're going to go to. Have like a realistic idea of what that school is going to look like for you to be there. And also don't worry about prestige or anything like that, because honestly, it's not going to matter. Like, by the time you're at the end of your senior year, everyone's going to be going where they're going and no one's really going to care. Go for the school that's the best fit for you, whether that's like financially, academically, socially. Definitely keep all those in mind, but like make sure that you're going to the school that's best fit for you, not necessarily the school with the lowest acceptance rate. I think that's really important.
What was the hardest part of the college application process overall for you?
For me, it was just, I applied to a lot of schools that had a really good chance of not accepting me. So I had to create a plan B, a plan C, plan D, plan E. I think the hardest part was just doing that, and I had to make a list of what I would do if I didn't get accepted to like this one school. What do I do at this next school and this next school? That was probably the hardest part for me.
And now looking back on the process, is there anything that you would do differently?
I'd probably start working on my college essay a lot earlier than I actually started. I started in like around September. I wish I started during the beginning of the summer, so I would have had more professional help, and yeah, that's all.
And do you have any other advice for rising seniors as they start looking at colleges?
One thing for sure is don't just apply to a college because of its name and prestige. You should apply to it because of what it means to you and what programs it has that will be beneficial to you.
And overall, what did you think was the hardest part of just the whole college application process from start to end?
I think balancing it with the schoolwork, because like especially with the IB program, you just have so much work all the time that having to take the time to do the extra essays, to do the extra like filling out all the information and keeping track of everything, it's a lot. And things with, I don't know, a lot of times schoolwork took priority in my life because the deadlines were a lot sooner, and that maybe shouldn't have always been the case.
And now looking back in the process, and what would you do differently?
I think I probably would have, well, I feel like I started fairly early, but at least starting a lot of the essays earlier, managing the timeline that I did them in, like I was saying earlier, I did leave a lot of them to last minute.
And now do you have any advice, just general advice for rising seniors as they start to begin looking at colleges and starting applications?
I'd say don't worry too much about just getting things done. You see people getting, I've heard so many juniors this year just worrying about like what colleges are, like looking at colleges already, like figuring out where they're going, everything ahead of time. A lot of that you don't really need to do until, like I didn't do until fall of senior year. I was perfectly fine. I mean, get started and make sure you keep track of everything you have to do to make sure it gets done on time. But before then, you don't really need to worry about what specific colleges you're going to.
And so what was the hardest part of the college application process for you overall, and how did you get through it?
I would say it was probably managing my time and planning out everything, because there's supplementals, there's your college essay, and then there's all of the application due dates, and trying to figure out if I wanted to do early action or just the regular decision was really difficult. But I basically just kind of made a list of everything that I had to do and when it was due.
And now looking back on it, would you do anything differently?
I would probably start looking for colleges that I wanted to apply to earlier, because I feel like I did it all last minute. So I didn't really go in depth with all of the colleges that I wanted to apply to. I just kind of looked at the surface.
And is there anything that you did like well that you would definitely do again that worked well for you?
The way that I planned out when I was submitting all of my applications worked out really well for me, and the supplementals, I was able to apply to probably 90% of my school's early action, which then gave me an earlier, like I heard back from them earlier, which really helped ease my anxiety about not getting into any of the schools.
And do you just have any general advice for rising seniors as they begin the college application process?
I would say make sure you go in depth and like research the colleges that you're applying to before you apply, and make sure that you really want to go there.
And so, what did you think was the hardest part of the whole college application process, and how did you like get through it?
Hmm. The the hardest part of the college application process was probably waiting for decisions. And I think just one way to get through it is just to keep reminding yourself that everything will be fine and trust the process and that you will end up where you should be. I really believe that. Because you spend so much time, writing your college essays and your applications and doing all your Common Apps, and you get nervous if you did everything right. So I really just think calming down would be my biggest piece of advice.
Mhm. And now looking back on it, would you do anything differently than how you did it?
Um, I probably would slow down a little bit because I did all my applications really quickly, because I wanted to have everything ready to go by the time I came in for senior year. I wanted to get all of my applications sent out and have all my letters done. But I really think you can take your time with it, but not like waiting last minute.
Yeah. And just do you have any like overall advice for rising seniors as they start the process?
Again, I would just say trust the process, look at deadlines, make this schedule for yourself. Write out what are the major deadlines coming up and stick to them, and schedule out that time for things that are going to take longer to complete.
Okay.
And what was the hardest part of the college application process for you, and how did you get through it?
Hardest part for me was probably all the various supplementals I had to write for all the colleges, because each college has different supplementals that are all about 250 words. So it's not so much that they're hard, it's just time consuming. And it's not something you want to not put 110% effort in. You want to take a lot of time for each supplemental to make sure like what you're writing is actually what you want these admission counselors to see about you, because they're not going to meet you. This is their only way to get to know you, so why not make the most of it?
And now looking back at it, is there anything you would do differently when applying to colleges?
I think the only thing I would do differently is maybe apply to better schools, shoot for the stars.
So do you have any advice for rising seniors as they begin the process?
Just don't let go. Just keep your ear to the grindstone.
So this video had a lot of advice about just the overall college application process. And like talked about what the hardest parts were. Of course, that's gonna be different for every person based on what you're good at and your strengths. For me, I think the hardest part was definitely just deciding a college. I struggled with that for a really long time. After I heard my last decision on April 6th, I did not decide until about 2 days before decision day. It was really hard for me. A lot of people have problems with time management and writing essays, which are hard. So it's going to be different for everyone, but I hope some of the advice gives you something to think about. And you saw that all of us would really do things kind of differently if we went back on it. So just know you're not going to do everything perfectly. Some things might go wrong, but it's all going to be fine. It'll work out. And so there's always going to be something you would change looking back on it. But overall, I think most of us are very happy with where we are. And I just hope this advice in this video helps.